Between the two of them. The inside of Coates. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Academy, powered by VRRC. We are going into the inaugural round of the Audi TT Cup. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I suppose I'm not the usual voice you're used to hearing on Academy. I'm the commentator for the League of Champions, but alongside me, as per usual in the League of Champions and always on the Academy series, is Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, I'm doing rather well. As you saw, League of Champions last night, I mean, if that has got anything to go by, the racing tonight, the time screens are looking just as close, and also this push-to-pass feature, which we will talk about later on, this is going to be some serious racing tonight.
Yeah, the push-to-pass is going to be another sort of thing they're going to have to learn about, aren't they, as well as all the racing and everything like that. Just like League of Champions, and probably like the rest of the Academy rounds, there is two 20-minute races around this brilliant Brands Hatch Indy circuit. We were just commentating on the GP circuit yesterday, Dave. Very much looking forward to seeing how the Academy tackle the Indy. 15 minutes of qualifying, they're about to get that underway sooner rather than later. But before we sort of go into anything else, Dave, I suppose what's the difference, before we see your hot lap especially, what are the differences in challenges that the Indy circuit poses that the GP circuit slightly doesn't?
So for me, it's probably one of the tracks that is slightly harder to generate overtakes. You don't have them massive slipstream and straight line performance advantages. It's a very tight, twisty track, and it requires you to maybe set up overtakes a few corners in advance, which obviously on a track that only has 4 corners, it makes it very, very difficult indeed. As you can see here, the TT Cup, a complete fixed setup, so it's as a level playing field as it's going to be. The same as the other rounds of the Academy as well. You can see the 6 rounds are all on the same tracks. So we've got Brands, which is obviously this round, Silverstone, Donny, Snetterton, Thruxton and Cadwell Park. And you can see the prizes that we've got on offer as well. So first place prize, 1 hour AOC gaming headphones and 2 hours one-to-one online coaching. Second place, one of the Power Max, the brilliant Power Max Carvalho buckets, and a 1 hour one-to-one online coaching. And then third place is 1 hour race car setup coaching, as well as 1 hour one-to-one coaching. So nice prizes there on offer. The whole idea is all about driver development in the Academy. It's all trying to get them to go that little bit faster and maybe progress up to the leagues like League of Champions chat, where them prizes are significantly higher. But also, so is the entry fee.
Yeah, exactly. So you get what you get. You get what you pay for, I suppose. But the Academy, you get that coaching, which could be potentially invaluable, because obviously you take that for years to come, and you can enter the big leagues then from then on, can't you? So it's a small price to pay for a sort of 5 or 6 years of high-level sim racing achievements. The Formula 4 have been and gone, so is the Mazda MX-5s. However, we're in the TT Cup now, front-wheel drive, push-to-pass system, and a little bit of aero as well. We'll talk about the characteristics of the car, when we go into qualifying. And then the Caterham 420R in about 7 weeks' time, so we got 6 weeks in the TT. Then we got the Caterhams following that, and that rounds out the Academy. So plenty of driving left to be done. And last time out at Cadwell, this is the F4's finale. Luke Weston took home the most amount of points, with Simon Reed in second place and Sam Milner coming home at the bottom of the podium. The driver of the round was Simon Reed, actually, so he did very well, in fact, second place and driver of the round. And that left the championship standings, as you see them on the screen as well. Simon Reed with 223 points, quite easily the winner of the championship. Brad Smith in second place, 177. Luke Weston, 164. He was in third. Mick, Sutton and Sam Milner round out the top 5, and you can see on your screen there the rest of your favourite drivers that you've tuned in to watch over the past 6 weeks as well, all listed down into 10th position. But we scratch it all off, Dave. We get set, we get ready for a new, don't we? Because the Audi TT Cup poses a very different challenge to the F4.
Yeah, it does indeed. And also a lot of fresh faces joined for particularly the Audi TT front-wheel drive, a very appealing car. And I tell you what, on the time screen, there's about 5 brand new drivers that are all really mixing up with the likes of Simon Reed. So we've seen Simon Reed particularly dominant in the other League of Champions so far, as well as Luke Weston. But I tell you what, it isn't going to be as plain sailing in this championship.
It absolutely isn't. And just before we go into qualifying and see the new faces that Dave has been talking about, let's quickly have a look at the track in question and in the car in question. A hot lap round Brands Hatch Indy in the Audi TT.
So across the line for round 1 of the Audi TT Cup Academy powered by VRRC. Seeing turn 1, just grab 4th gear, take quite a lot of entry curve there as well. Brake just after the bridge into Druids, down to 3rd gear. Try to just get that diff lock nice and early, power it out into 4th gear, down to Graham Hill Bend on the brakes super early, but then off them again to roll the speed through the corner. Going to grab 5th, now down towards 30s, looking left, trying to spot that apex, getting in that V between the 2 curbs, and then braking nice and hard down 2 gears for the last corner, trying to get on the power nice and gentle over the crest, and now driving it hard all the way to the line. Make sure you tune in at 7:15 on the 16th of September to catch the Brands action on our YouTube and Facebook page.
Arguably one of the shortest hot lap videos we probably ever had just before we go into qualifying, which is lucky actually because qualifying is well underway. We actually did that intro a little bit too long there, Dave, because we've had some quick times already posted on the board. Luke Weston tops the pile at the moment with Kyle Felvers, and then Rich Hayden has just moved himself up to 3rd place. Rich was obviously the man in charge of VRRC. He was in the comms box earlier on having a chat with us. He's very much looking forward to this evening, I'm thinking. And Marmik Satar, he's in 4th, Brad Smith in 5th place, but times are tumbling. In fact, Brad Smith has actually just gone and put a purple sector 1 in. Rich Hayden was a purple sector 2, so let's see if Brad can take that away from him and get him maybe into the top end of the qualifying. But crucially, Dave, you just mentioned it while we were in the hot lap as Brad Smith is going to come across the line. I'll just pause my sentence for a second, see what Brad Smith can get done. He can get pole position. I'm very glad I paid attention to that one. That's a very quick lap of 48.7, Dave. That is quite impressive.
Yeah, that is a very, very good lap indeed. So I think we'll probably need to touch a little bit on what these cars actually are. So you've heard us mention a few times now this push to pass feature. So this is a button on the driver's wheel that they'll have that gives them 8 seconds of an extra 30 horsepower of boost, which is brilliant for overtakes or getting better drive up the hill. Then once that's used for 8 seconds, doesn't work like curves where if you brake it then backs it off and you can't then reuse it. It's just 8 seconds fixed of push to pass, and then once 8 seconds is done, there's a 16-second regeneration time. So in all of practice and in both races, the drivers are given 15 push to passes, but in qualifying, no push to passes at all. So what we're seeing in qualifying is pure car pace. That's not to say when it comes to the race though, Jack, the race strategy might be slightly different.
Yeah, and actually, when you really think about it, it's a 48-second lap, isn't it? So actually, what you're doing is you've got 8 seconds worth of 30 horsepower difference in the race, of course. That's about 1/6 of your lap is getting an extra 30 horsepower. So you really want to have your throttle down for those full 8 seconds to really maximize it, because as you hit the brake, you're basically wasting seconds of extra power that you could be using. But just like you said, the qualifying, you don't have it. It's just purely on your pace and your pace alone, and how quickly you can get the car round as standard. So Brad Smith doing very well at the moment, as we said, with a 48.7. That's a very quick time with or without the extra push to pass system, isn't it? So he's setting himself up very nicely. Getting off the line then, would we expect to see that push to pass, Dave?
So this is a big thing. As a driver on the grid, first gear, realistic, if you set push to pass away off the line first gear, little bit of a waste. If you're going to use it, you've got to get the car into second before it'll put a bit of that power down. But you know, you were talking about you want to use the push to pass cleverly in places where it's going to give the car an advantage. Now, one of the clear places for that is the drive all the way up to Druids, the tight hairpin at the top, as we see there. Nathan Blank just managing to get on track there just about safely and managing to let a driver through there on his quali lap. So yeah, as I was saying, up to Druids, you got that steep hill. That's a place where actually that push to pass feature will really help pull the car up there. Obviously, off the start, if you've got a pack of cars in front of you and you've used it up that bank, it's actually quite a big waste, really. So it's one of them things. I don't really think you can go into this with too much strategy unless if you're winning the race. And then if you're winning, you maybe use it just to constantly get them faster lap times. But if not, a driver might use this push to pass in places you'll never think that that driver might, to try and get a nose up the inside. And the big issue then is, as a driver trying to defend that, do you then use the push to pass to defend that line, or do you let them through, try and get the cut back, and then use the push to pass to get back? So it really, really does mess with your strategy, and it's actually something we see a lot of in like the LMP formulas for Le Mans racing and things like that, where the drivers have these push to pass features in KERS and DRS. So a very, very technical car, even though it looks like just basically a VW TT Cup car.
Yeah, it is extremely complicated, isn't it, really? Because these drivers, they've done this circuit a couple of times, because obviously it's the same 6 circuits on all of the Academy series, so they've already done it in the F4s, and they've already done it in the MX-5s, haven't they? But it just adds another layer of computational skills that you have to go through. You're not just thinking about tyres, you're not just thinking about the cars behind you, or lines, or braking zones, or anything like that, or time.
Yeah.
You've also got this tactic of the push to pass as well, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they hack on with this. Nikki Taylor has just got into 6th with 2 green sectors as well, so we're starting to see a couple of drivers that maybe we were expecting a bit higher up. Now Nikki Taylor's one of those drivers as well that we've seen in the League of Champions, as a few are. Andy Dorman, another one, obviously. He's in Nikki's in 6th, Dorman's in 7th. We've got Mick Sutton on your screen now, he's in 11th place. Kenny Preston 13th, Paul Laramie in 14th, although they've just switched position as I've said that. They also in League of Champions, so it's going to be quite nice for me to see how these drivers get on in the Academy. And really, we know full well that they're very competitive. Nikki Taylor especially is all guns blazing, isn't he, Dave, when he goes into the League of Champions? He's very entertaining to watch. And if there are drivers that are slightly quicker than them, then we know full well that they could mix it in the higher leagues as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the racecraft is like here today in the Academy. Yeah,
definitely. And actually, I'm just looking at the timing screens, and I tell you what, 2nd to 8th place, separated by less than 1/10 of a second. I know it's a short track, but that is really, really close at the moment. Nikki Taylor, actually, if we can try and get an eye on Nikki Taylor, currently gone purple in Sector 1, so this could be a hell of a lap by Nikki Taylor. Rich Hayden actually puts a purple sector in to take on pole, should I say. I got to struggle to get my words out there. But yeah, Rich Hayden putting a purple last sector in, managing to get himself up to pole. Nikki Taylor, a slow last sector, but that's showing he's got pace in the car. Just needs to hook that 2nd sector up a little bit better, and Nikki could find himself higher up the grid here.
We'll have to keep an eye out. Rich Hayden obviously on pole position at the moment, just taking that away from Brad Smith, who I think is another one actually was in the League of Champions as well. So not only the drivers that have performed in the League of Champions are here today, we also have a whole host of newcomers as well as a few drivers who obviously just do the Academy and have done since the MX-5s, but a few drivers that have been entered into the TT Cup. We've got Satar, Felvers, Taylor, Zanatachi, Jones, Blank, and Laramie of all new for the TT series. So we just bolstered this grid out really nicely, Dave, isn't it? Which is brilliant to see. Just before we get into the racing, because we know full well there's not much time to be chatting whilst racing. Yeah. Whilst you were doing the hot lap and you were just talking to me and Tom in the broadcast booth, you mentioned that you almost compared them to the minis, didn't you? But they're a little bit more stable. What's the sort of characteristics that you're talking about there?
Yeah, so obviously we did the mini JCW and League of Champions just last night, the finale. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go on YouTube on our VRRC Facebook and YouTube page and check out the racing jack. It was absolutely phenomenal. I think you'd agree. But yeah, regarding the mini JCW, in comparison to this, so mini is a lot shorter wheelbase, a little bit narrower. You can see the track of these TTs. They are super, super wide, big flared arches. It just means they're incredibly stable around the corners, especially the high-speed stuff. You can really lean onto the side of the car, which is quite rare for front-wheel drive. You'd expect it to have a lot of rear-end rotation, but the car is actually very, very stable indeed. can see a massive rear wing as well on the car. So not necessarily a brand, but when we get to the likes of Snetterton, that rear wing is going to really provide a bit more of that fantastic slipstream that gives real good racing. Then you've obviously got push to pass, and also the diff is a little bit different in these cars as well. So the diff is slightly less aggressive, and obviously you've got a DSG box, so there's no clutch in this, which let's hope that doesn't trick any of the drivers off the line as well. You've just got to rev it out in neutral and select first when it goes green. There is no clutch pedal press in these cars, so as I say, let's hope that doesn't trick anyone out.
I'll be honest, it's tricked me out a couple of times. It's not necessarily obviously in a series, but if I've just been messing around on a sim and all of a sudden I accidentally jump start out of nowhere and I think, oh, for God's sake, I've got to restart this again in an hour, haven't I, or something like that. It can be very frustrating. Hopefully, as you said, these guys have done enough practice that they won't have that issue. I mean, we've seen a few people over 200 laps, over 100 laps for the majority. Around 80 is probably about the average for practice in this server alone. So they should have their sort of hands and grips together with the Audi as we go on. Simon Reed on the screen at the moment, he's in 6th position, no improvement from here. Andy Dorman does go green in sector 2, but 4th is still as good as he can manage at the moment. Rich Hayden's still on pole position by 0.03 of a second, but Brad Smith is in 2nd place by only 0.003 of a second behind Marmik Satar, who went into 3rd a couple of moments ago. Now his ping is a little bit of a worry to me, Dave. I have to say, we had unfortunate incidents with Nikki Taylor yesterday in the finale for the minis. Just with lag spikes. That can happen. It's not something that usually happens in real life racing, obviously, but in sim racing, it's one of the few things that can come a cropper. A few technical issues with the PC potentially, but Satar has got extremely high ping. We could see some lag spikes from him. That might upset a few people.
Yeah, so I believe that is, don't hold me to this, I believe he's from South Africa.
I see.
I think that's what I got told. So I believe he's from South Africa. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong, Satar there, but I believe that was right. But I think it's a case of his connection to the server actually isn't too bad, but just because of the distance from him to where our servers are based is obviously a long way. So as you can see on screen, he doesn't appear to be jumping around really that much at all. So I like to think we might be okay. The problem is these lag spikes which you're on about, which yes, Nikki Taylor had them issues last night. I believe I fixed his PC. Unfortunately, modern PCs come with this whole backup system that does automatic updates, and for whatever reason, the PCs love to do it during races, and that's what we see a lot of.
Yeah, I love to pick their timing, don't they? But it's all part of the service, you know, in VRRC. If you do have technical PC issues, then we are always on hand to try and get rid of those little niggles so we can just try and get you on the circuit and racing and doing what you love and doing what you signed up for as well. I mean, it's part of it, isn't it, Dave?
It is indeed. It exactly is all about that. It's all about encouraging drivers to get behind the wheel of these sim cars, get involved in the racing and understand how fun it can be. The likes of Nikki Taylor, you know, a common driver we see, he's done the full season of Mini Coopers this season in real life. And I tell you what, he's really, really enjoying the sim racing at the moment. And actually, it just shows it because he went, right, I've done Mini JCW, let's get signed up to TT and give it another go.
Exactly. And if you're thinking you're watching this or you watched the League of Champions yesterday and you're thinking, it's a little bit above my sort of pay grade, you know, it's not necessarily something that I can think, you know, I won't be quick enough, or I don't want to get in people's way or anything, please don't be put off by the fact that it looks...
Yeah,
exactly. That's the whole point of Academy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is exactly it. So we've got a driver at the back, Nathan Blank. It's his first time racing on a sim. I literally set his PC up last night, a very, very late entry, but he just said it's something I've always been meaning to get round to. I really like racing. Let's just give it a go. And that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, so if you are interested in racing, do get in contact with VRRC. Don't worry, don't be put off. We'll get you up to speed, even if you don't really feel like you are already. So, pole sitter Dave, go and have a chat with him. I reckon he's going to be quite happy and friendly and probably excruciatingly smug.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit strange to go down to our pole sitter and it be my boss sat on the grid, but I tell you what, a 7:03 lap time without any push to pass, you must be fair happy with that, I take it, Rich.
I'm not supposed to be here, am I? Yeah, I was struggling at the beginning of the session, just not getting paddock hill bend right, and then managed to hook it up and get a decent lap in. So very happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't race under your own company, then it's a fair sad state of affairs. So I think it's brilliant to see you out on the grid, you know, get back behind the wheel and actually lapping very, very fast indeed. So we might see you in a few more championships if you hold this up.
I think I'll stay in academy. I don't think I'm ready to go with the aliens, but yeah, no, it's all good. I'm really pleased with that. Thanks.
And then a quick question as well regarding strategy. I was saying this is where it becomes really, really difficult. You've got Brad Smith behind. Is this a case of where you've got a bit of a strategy in your head regarding when you're going to use them push to passes, or you're going to have to use it a little bit in that retaliation if Brad or Sutton just behind you use that to get that advantage or get that nose up the inside? It
depends how my start goes. If I get a clean start and I get ahead, I'm going to follow my strategy, which I think you know what it is. Yeah, yeah, I mentioned it earlier on. Yeah, if I get a clean start, I'll use the push to pass in the normal way that I would. But obviously, if I have a bad start, then I might need to use it to get back ahead.
Yeah, so just a quick little tip as well. Remember, Rich, there's no clutch in these cars, so don't put it in first before it goes green.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate.
And the accelerator's on the right.
Okay. And the brakes on the left, yeah?
Yeah, very left, very left of the pedal box.
Yeah. What's this big round thing in front of me?
I think looking at your lap time, you know fine well how to pedal this car. Huge congratulations, Rich, and good luck in race one.
Cheers, thanks, guys.
And as we say goodbye to Rich and he lines up on the grid, we're just going to have a quick look at what the drivers are racing for and a pair of AOC gaming headsets. And we're back looking at a sensationally full lineup of cars here on the grid at Brands Hatch Indy. It's going to be very exciting indeed. We've got about 40 seconds before we go green with Rich Hayden on the front row with Brad Smith, and then Mick, Sutton, Andy Dorman, Luke Weston, Carl Felvis, Simon Reed, Nikki Taylor, Sam Milner, and Paul Zanatachi. Apologies, Paul, if I'm saying that slightly wrong. I know you got a fan in the YouTube chat, so please, if you want to spell it phonetically, if I am saying it wrong, then please do that. Paul Laramie, Taylor O'Flanagan, Kenny Press, Mick Sutton, Simon Thorpe, John Jones, and Nathan Blank round out the 17 cars. And the lights are about to come onto our screen now, so by all means, get ready for a fantastic evening's racing, because race one of the Audi TT Cup Academy is about to get underway, and we're off. And it is Rich Hayden with a good start. A bit of a wheel spin there for Brad Smith. It's always a little bit harder to start on that outside, but as Brad Smith gets into the first corner, he is well and securely into second place. Fingers crossed we see nice clean racing. They are going three wide in the background there. I think that's Nikki Taylor and Simon Reed as Brad Smith looks up the inside, and Rich Hayden all over the apex and the grass on the inside of going into Druids, really defending that hard. Mick Sutton is in third place still, but he's got Luke Weston for company. At the back is John Jones, unfortunately, going off the circuit, as it has just calmed down at such at the front end, but Brad Smith is not going anywhere.
Yeah, if I'm completely honest, I thought that was an absolutely brilliant start. A lot of these drivers probably feeling a little bit out the depth here, not used to being surrounded by that many cars. I tell you what, very impressive to see such a clean start from a lot of them drivers. So, quick update as well, you can see on the timing tower, we've got something different to what we've seen at other places. You can see a green, an amber and a blue dial next to each person's race number there. So if that's blue, that is regeneration time. If it's green, they've got it ready to use. If it's amber, they are using it. We saw off the line both Rich Hayden and Luke Weston both using that to gain that advantage and get that drive, and that's what gave Rich that little bit of breathing room on Brad Smith. This is brilliant racing between Nathan Blank, actually. That was very respectful, go down to Graham Hill. I thought he was going to show a little bit of a nose there, but hasn't quite committed to that. We've got Sam Milner. Oh, that's a disaster. That's a crash with Paul. Oh, that is a nightmare of a crash through that section. I think that was absolutely nothing could have been done there by Paul to try and avoid that. That was just a case of Sam Milner getting a little bit wide. Maybe Paul could have braked there if he'd seen that coming, but let's hope that car isn't too severely damaged. There's still 18 minutes left of that race. Let's see if he can get his way back up. We know he's got the pace in the car, but if that's got damage, that could be a real struggle for him.
Marvick Satar has dropped from 3rd down into 5th position, with Luke Weston and Nikki Taylor being the drivers to take advantage of that. We saw a little bit of contact into Paddock Hill Bend between Satar and Taylor. Just a nudge slightly out wide, so the entry was compromised. But a big lunge up the inside here by Cal Felvers. Not happening at the moment against Andy Dorman, who runs nicely wide on the exit. But Felvers is trying to look up the inside. This is where the push to pass is being initiated. Although neither of these drivers here is Satar. Dorman behind, not activating that push to pass just yet. Nikki Taylor was. That's why we got a little bit of a gap. And it's almost it looks like a rubber banding effect. I completely forgot what the name is there, Dan. Dave even. I don't know why I'm saying Dan either. Rubber banding effect in the sort of the way that the push to pass is initiated. Where some drivers activate it and the driver behind doesn't, you all of a sudden see a little bit of a gap forming, and then they'll press it at the next straight, and that gap will be pushed right back, won't it? It's quite hard to figure out who's really quicker than who.
So what I really love about this as well is it really gives a chance in these races that if they didn't have that push to pass feature, you might look at this and go, this is a little bit stagnant now. The cars are separated, no one's really making any moves, but that push to pass feature means these drivers have absolutely no rest. In fact, there's Nikki Taylor putting a move up the inside. Has he got the job done? Not quite there, but Nikki Taylor looking very, very racy here against the back of Luke West. Sorry, that was Luke Weston of Brad Smith, and that has given the chance of Nikki Taylor to close right up to the back. That is a brilliant move. I would say that was perfectly fair. Luke Weston there with a look up the inside into Graham Hill Bend. Brad Smith just closing that door. If he braked and just tried to leave a bit more space there, I don't think both drivers would have come off as bad. But I tell you what, that has played right into the hands of Nikki Taylor. Found his way up to 2nd place. I did expect this a little bit. Nikki maybe not quite showing the pace in the car in qualifying, but we know he's got brilliant racecraft and he's got such determination to get through the grid, and that is exactly what we saw from the start.
I thought I was having flashbacks to Matt Neal versus Colin Turkington then, to be fair, through Graham Hill Bend. I was having a relapse. This is about off driver in the background. That's Brad Smith.
Oh.
Brad Smith, he was in 2nd place for a long time, all the way down into 10th. But of course, there is a reverse grid in race number 2, so maybe 10th isn't the worst place to be starting in the world. Paul Laramie going past Taylor O'Flanagan for 8th and 9th place. So there is plenty of action that's cracking on. Rich Hayden's just oblivious to it all because he's 3 seconds ahead. Falvers goes through on Dorman around the outside through Clark Curve, but it's not happening. That is a Dorman coming back at Falvers now on the inside. Neither of them using the push to pass. Remember, there is push to pass. We've mentioned it a few times, but there is only 15 opportunities to use it, and you can actually see who has got. You can actually see the amount of push to passes left.
Racing?
Oh no, it's incredible, isn't it? It's around the outside for Falvers. He's blocked off Andy Dorman as well, and Simon Reed's been invited to the party as they come around Druid for the next time. Falvers having to recover that charge now as Dorman looks towards the inside of Graham Hill Bend, but it's not quite happening. But a stunning move around the outside of Paddock Hill.
Yeah, for me, move of the day. move of the day, that at the moment. What a fantastic move was. Fantastically clean. Tried to outbrake him into the last corner. And I tell you what, there's Simon Reed getting up the inside. You can tell he braked there. He wanted to back out of that. He doesn't want to turn Dorman round. Simon Reed maybe not in the position that he's used to being in here at the moment. But I tell you what, I think Dorman's struggling on the brakes a little bit. That seems to be his little bit of a weak area there. But I tell you what, for Kyle to brave it around the outside of turn 1, that takes some serious commitment. Then he had the overspeed, and actually, as I say that, Simon Reed with a move up the inside of Dorman. This is maybe not quite as defensive as what we'd expected to see maybe from Dorman. He's got the speed in the car. Whether or not he's got any damage here would surprise me. But actually, another driver going very, very well indeed. Paul Laramie, look, up in the 8th place at the moment.
Yeah, uncharacteristic from Andy Dorman, but Paul Laramie absolutely flying here, isn't he? I mean, Dorman was one of the star turns in the minis. We expected to see him maybe getting a few victories. He got 3rd yesterday in the finale. Paul Laramie was sort of weighing down at the back end of the field in the League of Champions, but here now in the academy, he's absolutely flying and going door to door with Dorman almost in 7th and 8th place. And I tell you what, I think Dorman's going to have to try and get into some kind of rhythm to get this back up, isn't he? Because it's just not happening for him at the moment. Rich Hayden still is just under 3 seconds. So Nicky Taylor actually has a little bit of pace in that last lap compared to Rich. So you can see the gap there. Maybe he's just, you know, minding the gap, as the London Underground tannoy would say. He's just trying to make sure that he's not going to be overtaken anytime soon. As Milner recovering, of course, that is a good move into Graham Hill's bend. It's a very difficult place to overtake Graham Hill. You have to be very brave because it can end up in contact. Goes past John Jones and through Surtees and Clark Curve. He has that move well and truly done and dusted.
Yeah, if I'm honest, it was a real shame to see Paul go off at the start of the race, dropping down all the way at the back of the grid. Not where we want to see him. We know he's got so much pace in the car. Let's hope he can pick his head up, keep that positive mind frame, go into race 2 and go, right, let's get through the pack while I've got the pace advantage and really make some progress forward. The championship is far from being done, as we see an uncharacteristic slide there from Paul Laramie, just dropping that back right wheel onto the grass. And I tell you what, this is bringing Brad Smith right in the picture. But these drivers need to watch out. Remember, it's a reverse grid race. And Brad Smith's got into the back of Paul Laramie there. I don't think Brad will go past because he'll know that is a bit unfair. Brad Smith there having another little nibble. Paul Laramie trying to defend this with everything he's got. As I was saying, these boys need to be careful. This is 10th place. This is for a reverse grid pole. 10th place really matters.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't want to be knocked down into 16th, do you, when you have the opportunity to start in pole position. Brad Smith looking up the inside as a late break by Paul Laramie. Doesn't make the apex, but he could carry the amount of speed that he needs to, though. A little bit more contact, but crucially, if you're on the outside, you come off the exit for the inside into Graham Hill. Brad Smith loses a little bit at the back end and may well lose 10th position away from Kenny Press here, I believe, is the yellow car trying to come up and cause a little bit of havoc in this little 2-way battle. Make it a 3-way battle as Kenny Press looks. I thought he was going to dive up the inside there towards the apex. I'm pretty glad he didn't because the door was swiftly closed. But at the moment, this is the fight for 10th place. Paul Laramie getting a little bit of a gap, and he'll be hoping Kenny Press is the driver to maybe upset Brad Smith even more. But I mean, Smith is quick, Dave. We know that. Qualifying in 2nd position. We expect him to be a lot further up the order, and you have to say, if he comes off this race on pole position, he needs to actually finish the race first. He dives at the inside of Druids, and I would say that's a little bit even past touring car standards of dive there. It's very late, very ambitious, and I think he's safe to say, I don't know about you, Dave, I think he used Paul Laramie as a bit of a break there.
That was a fair lunge, but it's touch and go. You would have to be on board with both cars, have a proper look at it to see whether the move was on or whether actually the lunge happened before Paul had started to turn in. As soon as that happens, Paul can see the cars going up the inside, and if he turns across the front of that car, unfortunately, that can be what happens. So very, very difficult call for us to just look at this and try and find out. But I tell you what, the way this is stand at the moment, Brad Smith is going to end up with that really good reverse grid position, and if he does, I've got him marked down for race 2 win.
Yeah, he's being your fantasy team. Kenny Press probably won't anymore, will he? Because he's been dropped down into 12th place after being overtaken I think that was by Paul Laramie or potentially Simon Thorpe. I didn't quite catch it. Update on the push to passes. Tom O'Farrell, who's our broadcaster and also top researcher, he does multiple things at once. It's quite impressive, to be fair. Satar, Laramie, and Kenny Press have not used any push to pass yet. So, or Jones apparently. So, there's plenty of push to passes left in their locker. They've only got 9 minutes to use it. I'm not entirely sure where they're going to be using all 15 now, and there's only 9 minutes left. I mean, that's realistically only about 9 to 10 laps. So maybe on the sort of back straight and the start-finish straight, but equally the back straight's not really worth it because then you have to come off the throttle through Surtees. It's just a bit maybe an overtaking opportunity into Druids potentially, as well as into Paddock Hill Bend is probably the most likely place they'll use their push to passes going forward.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this now. I think Simon Reed here is playing a bit of a blinder. He doesn't have quite the track position there, sat in 6th place, but he seems to be using his push to passes very well, and he's actually managed to get fastest lap of the race. So actually, Simon Reed more pace in that car than what his position's letting out.
Yeah, so Satar actually, so as I was just saying that, a load of them actually started using their push to passes. Satar is, I think, one of the only ones who hasn't used it now, and he's sat in 4th place. The gap between 1st and 2nd is, actually, it's been, I was about to say it's decreased, because it did decrease at one point to 2 seconds. It's now increased to 3.5 seconds.
Oh.
Nicky Taylor must be making a little bit of a mistake, but at the background, there's more mistakes. Nathan Blank versus Mick Sutton, parked both on the outside. And John Jones goes through as well. So Sutton, John Jones, and Blank are the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Sutton and Blank were the 2 drivers that were involved in that. And hopefully Blank doesn't take that to heart and he gets back out there for race number 2. We didn't quite catch what went on. This is Kyle Felvers catching up to Marmik Satar. And I hope that Marmik actually knows that the fact that he has pushed a pass and that he's mapped it on his steering wheel, because that would be slightly awkward because I still haven't seen them actually use it. Luke Weston in 3rd place is probably thinking he's quite happy at the moment, but we're not entirely sure. I don't know if you can see, Dave, just how many push to passes Weston has. But if Satar has 15 at his disposal, Weston will be under a bit of pressure here.
Yeah, definitely. And I tell you what, it makes me doubt whether he knows he's got push to pass. Because with 6 minutes left of the race, even if he tried to use them as much as possible, he wouldn't be able to use them all. So I think this is actually a mistake from Satari.
Yeah, I think someone maybe want to send him a little bit of a message. Apparently Luke Weston has about 4 left to play with. So the fact that Satar is this quick and he doesn't even know about the cheat button, basically, is very impressive. And if someone actually told him that what he has under his locker, then he could well actually be pushing for race victories here as Felvers looks to the inside of Graham Hill Bend. Now, that's one of those psychological race moves, you know, I like talking about there, Dave, because he only faked it. He just forced the driver out wide. He didn't actually put his car in any threatening position. He just made the driver in front think he was going to. Therefore, the driver in front gets a bit scared, drives in his mirrors, misses the braking zone, misses the apex, and becomes vulnerable to an attack. Luckily for Satar, it wasn't quite happening in that one, but now he knows maybe what the plan is for Felvers going forward.
Yeah, definitely that. I tell you what, this has shown some real good pace. The fact he hasn't used any yet, and he's holding his own there in 4th. What it could have been if he realises that all he has to do is press a button on his wheel and you get free power. I tell you what, a real mix-up here, as I was saying. Look at the amount of newcomers in that top 5. Nikki Taylor, Satar, Kyle Felvis. Like, these are all drivers that's really messing things up for the likes of Reed, Dorman, Brad Smith even. This is really messing things up.
It is indeed. As we're looking at the front nose cone now of Simon Reed as he stares down the barrel of some exhaust on Carl Felvers, though. And the push to pass has been activated, and that's the difference, isn't it? Felvers wasn't using it 30 horsepower later, and Reed is going for an opportunity for an overtake, but he was forced to look around the outside. He doesn't quite get that cut back. Oh, he does just about. There, Dave, that's a good move up to the inside of Druids, isn't it? As Simon Reed goes through on Carl Felvers. He lined that up nicely in the Paddock Hill Bend, but he took too much speed through the apex of the corner. He couldn't scrub his tyres. He couldn't scrub the speed. And it looks like he's just about got that move done. But Andy Dorman, how many times have we said this on a Tuesday night? Andy Dorman's come into the fray here, and he's looking to upset the apple cart. He's wanted to get in here and finish in the top 5. At the moment, he's probably arguably better for a reverse grid position here, sat in 7th place. But he wants the points. He wants to get as high as possible.
Oh, look at
and
this.
here's the push to pass on Felvers yet again. Felvers using brilliant car positioning to just park himself on the inside of Paddock Hill, but he needs to make sure he can get back to cover off that dive that Dorman will inevitably have a look at. And to be fair, he was driving on the inside of the racing line there, but not too far across, a little scupper him through Druid. Really good car positioning there by Felvers.
Yeah, so this for me is where we just really need to see Dorman maybe being a little bit more aggressive. If he's using that push to pass on that start, he needs to get closer and try and get inside instead of being on that outside towards turn 1.
Yeah, as we go into the final 3.5 minutes, it's worth noting that it's 5.3 second gap for the race lead. Nikki Taylor is still in 2nd place. It's a fair old margin to Luke Weston as well, it has to be said, in 3rd. Kenny Prest is the driver we're currently looking at as he tries to catch down Simon Thorpe, and obviously then Paul Laramie would be the obvious next target, but there's such a big gap, Dave. I don't think that reverse grid is really going to be an option for either of these drivers. Paul Laramie seems pretty secure in that 10th position at the moment. He's got about 2 seconds ahead of him and about 2 seconds behind him.
And I'm going to say it now, this is a fantastic drive by Simon Thorpe. We've seen in a lot of the championship he's entered so far. I believe he's only entered 2, so not a lot at all. He's just struggled to find his home in the car, struggled to be consistent. But I tell you what, something has really clicked. He's up into P11. Fantastic drive by Simon so far.
Indeed, there's brilliant drives all the way down, isn't there?
There
really?
is, yeah.
And actually, I mean, you said it while the headset advert was on. You're hoping that there wouldn't be a big crash fest because the times are so close. And we have seen nothing of the sort. There's been a few incidents, and as I'm saying, Andy Dorman, very uncharacteristically, going very wide. He kept it on the track, though, which was lucky for him, because there's seen plenty of drivers park it into the gravel pits in real life and in the sims there. But yeah, even so, there's been brilliant amount of racing respect and racing standards here today so far. I mean, the reverse grid could, prove me wrong, but so far it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think reverse grid race, let's face it, there will be a bit of more argy-bargy going on. But I tell you what, we've run some bigger championships before with drivers we regard as being them aliens or higher, I'm not going to say higher standard drivers, but the drivers that are maybe capable of pushing a little bit more out the car. But I tell you what, there's lessons to be learned watching this academy race. This has been fantastically clean so far. Respectful driving. If someone's gone for one of them lunges, the driver's seen it, opened up the corner, tried to get the cup back. It's just been the right amount of aggression for me, this race. Not too tame, but enough aggression for these sort of touring car style cars.
Yeah, it's been very entertaining from our perspective as well. Hopefully the drivers will come off the circuit with a bit of a smile on their face, because ultimately we want people to enjoy sim racing, so they keep coming back and wanting to get involved in it. You don't want to alienate people and they fall out of love with it. I mean, I know, for instance, that at the beginning of pandemic, I was invited to quite a lot of these sort of bigger events, as sort of with the Oliphant name and everything. Tom doesn't have a sim. And to be honest, it alienated me. I didn't like it. I didn't like the pressure. I didn't like crashing into people like Paul O'Neill and Abby Eaton and people like that and ruining the spectacle of the race. So I jumped in the comms box. But if I had a series like Academy to jump into first and learn all that sort of thing and learn how to be quick at the circuits and learn how to have the racecraft and everything like that and learn how to drive a front-wheel drive car, would have been nice as well. There would have been an opportunity for actually enjoying the racing instead of just saying, no, I'm out, I can't do this anymore.
That is exactly what it's about. You enter a lot of these big, serious championships and it looks all very appealing, but when it comes down to crunch time, if you enter and you're 2.5 seconds off what the drivers at the front are doing and you literally haven't got a clue what they're doing, often being is there's a team there at the front that's got about 8 engineers working on the setup of the car. They're all testing stuff. You've rocked up by yourself and gone, well, I can't get anywhere near. Well, no wonder, because you haven't spent umpteen days trying to dial the setup in for that specific track on that specific temperature. That's where the academy really comes into its own. It is all fixed setup, everyone's in the same boat, and it's that lack of pressure that you're on about. It is all for enjoyment and learning. And actually, talking about that, Rich Hayden, what a race he's done from start to finish, led it perfectly, judged his push to pass as absolutely spot on. Fantastic victory, Rich.
Yeah, but takes the checkered flag with Nikki Taylor in second place. Luke Weston comes across the line to take third with Mick Sutton, who needs a bit of a reminder that he has 30 extra horsepower at his disposal each and every lap. Simon Reed comes home in fifth place. I know that'll please a few of the people on the YouTube chat who were supporting him. Carl Felvers used his push passes very wisely, actually. He finished in sixth. Andy Dorman comes home in seventh. Tyler, there's going to be a race to the line here. This is between Sutton and Milner, and it is Sutton and Milner in that order for 14th and 15th place. I'll round out the top 10. Taylor O'Flanagan in 8th with Brad Smith in 9th, and Paul Laramie will start on pole position for race number 2. Apparently Press and Sitar didn't have push to pass, so I think someone needs to send them a bit of a message and say, you know, you've got about 15 opportunities at using 30 extra horsepower under your belt at some point here. Anyway, we'll get to Podium Interviews Day, because I know you've already dragged in very quickly, I might add, some our top 3.
Yeah, well, we're on the ball here, Jack. We're on the ball. Yeah, unfortunately, the difficult thing is, if them drivers don't realise that they can use push to pass, or they haven't what we call bounded to a button, so that means when you can press it and use it, that actually means that you can't then back out the race and put it in for race 2. So them drivers, let's hope they've just realised it. But actually, if they haven't bound a button, there's not a lot they can actually do here.
There isn't, no. But what are the 3 drivers that did find their way into how to get the button to work are the 3 drivers that you can have a chat to, actually. The top 3 are in the commentary booth.
Yeah, they are indeed. And first of all, we'll go to our P3 finisher here, Luke Weston. I mean, a fantastic effort. And I tell you what, regarding strategy, I bet you've never raced anything like this before.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. The car seemed all right. It's really, really something you have to get used to with the push to pass.
Yeah.
Get with the other drivers on circuit. But when you get a rhythm and where you're going to press it and how you're going to press it, obviously, because you only have 15 and there's well over 20 laps here around Brands Indy. It's where you're going to push it in relation to the other drivers, and it's really strategic.
Yeah, I mean, I take it as well. A particularly short track, probably not a track that actually lends itself too well to the push to pass, but I guess you can imagine when we go to some of them bigger tracks, this is going to make these cars an absolute spectacle to race.
Yeah, the circuits like Silverstone and Donington and Snet, the push to pass is really going to come into its own, really, with the other guys on circuit in the long straights. It's going to be something to see the guys going down into the corners alongside each other, really, because of having this, I think it's 30 extra horsepower.
It is, yeah. Well, huge, fantastic effort there, Luke. Getting your way up to P3. Really looking forward to seeing what you can do in race 2 here.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll move forward on our P2 finisher, Nikki Taylor. I almost called it a bit, maybe not exactly the pace we expect to see in qualifying, but the aggression and the calculation you've got for racecraft really helped you get through the grid there in a fantastic P2 finish.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying weren't the best, but I know my qualifying pace isn't normally that great anyway. So race pace, I just thought literally just bomb through and see where we can get, and then the P3 and P2 collided midway through the race. So I just made my way through that, and then just used the push pass where I could, and then just try to use it for some fast laps. But I know I'm not the quickest here, but my racecraft certainly shows I can be at the front.
Yeah, I mean, we actually saw that pass. It was brilliantly calculated. Just held it back a little bit, saw them collide, and then just saw the gap through the cars, get through it nice and cleanly in a nice, easy 2 positions gained. Obviously, this is a car that you're not used to driving, as well as this push-to-pass feature. We're going to talk about it quite a bit. It must be completely different to anything you've raced here before when you've got the likes of that push-to-pass to just gain an advantage on a driver in front.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot different to like other cars I've raced around here, but at the end of the day, it's just you have to adapt to it, and the push to pass, it helps a lot. Like going down the straight is basically the main use for it, because you use it anywhere else and it literally just spins up your ears. But it was really good. I used it to quite some advantage. I think I only had 2 left at the end of the race there, so I was trying to use it as much as possible just to get maintain a gap between P3, and then Rich just had something else in his locker, so couldn't catch him. But hopefully we'll win race 2. I know I'm starting further back down, but anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Huge congratulations there, Nikki, on your first P2 here with VRRC. Hopefully there's
Cheers.
many more to be had, and look forward to seeing what you can do in the reverse grid.
Cheers, thank you.
I'll move forward on our P1 finisher. Rich, I mean, it was exactly to plan, like you said, and I tell you what, shown some extreme pace to just keep pulling away.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I was really pleased to be ahead after Paddock Hill, and then I just, stayed on strategy and used the push to pass to try and gap, which seemed to work. I got up to about 3 seconds, and then hovered around 3 seconds for a while when I laid off the push to passes. Had a bit of a hairy moment at the end with a back marker, but yeah, it was all good.
And I've got to quickly ask, how fun are these cars to race?
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
They are absolutely fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you're going to manage to use that push to pass and seeing how enjoyable you find the racing when you've got the reverse grid to deal with.
Yeah, full reverse. Joy.
I'll speak to you short. Well, we might speak to you shortly, Rich.
Cheers, mate.
And that was Dave Marshall having a chat to our podium sitters. Now, I have been told, actually, we've been acting, Dave, as if it's a top 10 reverse grid. Apparently, it's going to be a full reverse grid, so that's going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons even more, isn't it? It's going to be even trickier to get right to the front.
Yeah, it really is indeed. And actually, that's just because we're so caught in the habit of League of Champions last night. We're just getting in the sort of the formula of just to reverse 10 every time. But as you're right in what you said, and it's making it particularly difficult with actually a grid bigger than we've seen in the other academies. 17 drivers. You can see Rich Hayden and Nikki Taylor all the way at the back. This is playing right into the favour of drivers that didn't have a good race one.
Yeah, we'll see how they get on with only about 10 seconds left. The engine notes rise, the lights come on, and we're about to get racing for the Audi TT Cup for a second time tonight here at Brands Hatch Indy, and it's a slow getaway from Mick Sutton. In fact, no, it's Nathan Blank, sorry, on pole, and we've already got a driver flying off on the left-hand side. Who is that? I'm not entirely sure. It's
Sam Milner.
It's Sam Milner. So who had an unfortunate incident at the beginning, and this looks like a little bit of an incident, but they've held on to it. Only one driver in the kitty litter for now, but it's 3, 4, 5 wide. This is inevitable. I think the driver that went straight on into Druids has managed to avoid everyone else, but they rejoin, and it's a little bit of a dodgy rejoin, I have to say. I think everybody else seems to have stopped and caused and formed an orderly queue at the back end. But a safety car has come out, and well, we're not too surprised, Dave, after seeing everyone flying into Druids that way.
Yeah, so that yet again, I think unfortunately it was Paul getting the rough end of the deal there. You saw him getting a drive down Paddock Hill Bend, getting a run on the other drivers, ended up the inside, but then 3 drivers, it might have been, all moving a little bit closer to the apex, pushing him a little bit wide and ended up on that grass, on that inside. Unfortunately, once he was on that grass, there wasn't much slowed down, ran it forward through Druids. The other 3 cars get through, but then it's always going to be a tricky rejoin. So not what we wanted to see there at all, but unfortunately, a bit inevitable when you jumble the grid up by this much. It is just carnage.
Yeah, but we can give you a rundown of the order after the first lap. Nathan Blank in the race lead, Simon Thorpe in 2nd place, Mick Sutton in 3rd. Carl Felvus is in 4th with Brad Smith rounding out the top 5. He's made a pretty decent start. Andy Dorman in 6th place, Luke Weston in 7th, Paul Laramie in 8th, John Jones in 9th, Nikki Taylor, who remember came second in that first raid. He's into 10th, which is very impressive. Simon Reed in 11th, Mick Sutton is in 12th. Rich Hayden's made his way up to 13th place with Taylor O'Flanagan in 14th, Sam Milner in 15th, Paul Zanatachi in 16th place, and Kenny Press in 17th, rounding out the field. So, Nathan Blank, even though he had a poor start off the racing line, Dave, he actually managed to get into the race lead and keep hold of it, didn't he? Which was quite impressive, with Simon Thorpe bearing down on him.
Yeah.
But to be fair, everybody else pretty much crashed into each other at that opening lap.
Yeah, so safety car is in, so we're back to full racing speed. But you're right, Nathan Blank actually doing quite a good job there off the line, a little bit wide there, and you can see things are already getting a little bit close and a bit clustered here. But I tell you what, great racing so far. Brad Smith, that's Andy Dorman having a look round Brad Smith. That wouldn't work. And I tell you what, which driver is it? Luke Weston, who's managed to get his way up into P5 from that reverse grid race. Remember, he finished P3 in race 1, so he's come for 15th on the grid, and after what, 3 minutes of racing, has found himself up to P5.
Yeah, and if Mick, Sutton and Carl Felvers have anything to do with it, they could end up getting a little bit further up. Here is John Jones, unfortunately sliding a bit backwards. I fear he had a little bit of an issue going through Surtees and maybe went over the grass, couldn't get the car stopped. An aggressive move over to the inside there by Carl Felvers, maybe feeling the pressure of Simon Thorpe, who's got Luke Weston for company just behind as well. So this little four-way battle is eating right into Blank's hands, isn't it? As Sutton again sends that fake, Felvers goes wide. Sorry, no, Felvers sent the fake. Sutton went wide. It's all a bit very complicated when they all look pretty much identical cars. Weston now in behind, going, looking up the inside of Graham Hill Bend, but I actually think that was just because Sutton was going a little bit wide. Thorpe gets behind Smith. Paul Laramie's coming up for an interesting move into Surtees as we look further back, and there's contact with the two Audis. Well, obviously the two Audis. Taylor and Reed going through. Laramie's going backwards, and so is Andy Dorman. And here comes Dorman. It's impossible to tell, actually, because there's so many people flying off the circuit at the moment. Paul Laramie is delved all the way back to 14th. Bit of a shame because he was doing really well. Simon Reed is up to 8th. Nikki Taylor up to 7th. And at the moment, Felvers is in 2nd place.
Yeah, so for me, Kyle has done a fantastic job there, just calculating what he needs to do. He pressured Mick Sutton, that's why he ran wide, nothing other than that. Calculated the cutback perfectly, and actually a really well-deserved 2nd place. That fantastic racecraft in race 1 with that move around the outside. And that was a bit of a dangerous left hand down there. I don't know who that actually was. I believe it was actually maybe Luke Weston. So a bit of argy-bargy between them two drivers. And who's that in the background? Nikki Taylor with an absolutely huge slide. And actually, I think he overtook Simon Thorpe sideways.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking for the driver that lost positions, but out of that little gathering, shall we say, it was Simon Thorpe who lost the most positions, and we saw Nikki Taylor going sideways, so that's very impressive. Looking up the inside to Paddock Hill there, Taylor and Flanagan, it's not advisable to go that far up the inside, as Nikki Taylor looked to the outside of Simon Reed, but yet again, Simon Reed delves into the depths of his brake pedal, locks up a little bit, and just about holds on to the position for now. Carl Felvers and Mick Sutton using their push to pass to hopefully catch up to Nathan Blank. There's about a 0.2 of a second gap as Mick Sutton goes wide, as Carl goes through back on him, and so does, who was that, Brad Smith. I think Sutton's in the kitty litter, isn't he, because he's now bleeding positions, and that's going to hurt him all the way down to Paddock Hill Bend. Weston got through, Reed and Taylor did as well.
Yeah, so that to me looked like two cars trying to go through Surtees. That in this car is on the verge of being flat. Then both them drivers look to me like they both... and that's a nightmare. He's just ended up on the outside of the car there. There wasn't necessarily too much room. That there's just where a little bit of experience there for Paul. Might have gave it a little bit of a brake check and then try to get the undercut and then use that push to pass all the way up through Paddock into Druids for a possible move. And I don't know what's happened here. Kyle has dropped all the way back to P6. I can't imagine that was a collision with any other driver, but Kyle must have run a little bit wide, maybe on the entry to Graham Hill Bend, or after Paddock. He seemed to lose a lot of speed there.
I think he was about 0.2 of a second away from Nathan Blank and quite clearly quicker. I think that actually he just went for a move and it didn't come off, to be honest.
Right.
But Luke Weston, I mean, he was in 3rd in the race, first race. That means he started in 15th position. He's up to 2nd place now as Reed goes up the inside. There's a late break there, move on Weston, as we were just talking about him. Blank goes a little bit wide. Again, Blank is just surviving based on the fact that everybody else is falling over each other at this rate, and they're still continuing to do so. Weston having to go very defensive into Surtees. Brad Smith is looking very interested in overtaking and hitting and doing both at the same time, and now bleeding positions as Nikki Taylor looks up the inside into Clark Curves. It's not happening for Nikki just yet. Simon Reed gets away with it, and he's poised for another attack on Luke Weston in a couple of laps time, probably about half a lap time to be honest. Nikki Taylor and Felvers trying to get past Brad Smith.
That's a move. Nikki Taylor up the inside of Brad Smith going into turn 1. Actually, quite surprised that didn't come out. It looked like Brad Smith was particularly late there on the brakes. But actually, Kyle has put a move up the inside of Taylor. Bit surprised that Taylor didn't try and defend that. But actually, I tell you what, this is brilliant racing to watch.
Yeah, Nathan Black defending into Druid, defending into Graham Hill, and he's been bumped out the way for good measure, unfortunately. Nathan Black, who held on to this race lead for 8 minutes, has finally had to succumb to the pressure, and maybe a bit of physical pressure as well, from the likes of Luke Weston and Simon Reed. And Weston and Reed still hitting each other. The front-wheel drive nature getting Luke Weston away with it somewhat, but Brad Smith is very interested as both of them ruin their run down towards Paddock Hill, and over the start-finish line, it's going to be Brad Smith into second place. Or can he hold on to the position? Yes, he can. He moves over to try and hold off Simon Reed, but he couldn't make the apex. So Simon Reed goes back into second place, and Brad Smith around the outside of Druid is going to be ambitious to try and hold it around the outside there. Luke Weston in the race lead, Simon Reed in second place, Brad Smith in third with Nikki Taylor, and then Nathan Blank in fifth. And then you've got this battle going on, Dave, with Felvers, Dorman and Thorpe. And it's still going off as Simon Thorpe gets overtaken by our race one winner. No, he doesn't. Andy Dorman gets overtaken by Simon Thorpe. I was looking a little bit too far back.
Yeah, so yet again, another really good performance here by Simon Thorpe. And there's unfortunately a collision between Simon Reed. Oh, and this, let's not get a bit naughty here, boys. Nikki Taylor has read it again, like we saw in race one. Let the drivers ahead have the argy-bargy. And then, let's keep this clean, boys. These drivers are getting a little bit agitated now. Simon Reed will probably class that as a little bit of a pass to push from what I saw there. And I tell you what, Luke Weston, I imagine, won't be happy about that.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that, but there is still 10 minutes of racing, so there's plenty of time for all of these drivers to try and make up for it. This is Paul Laramie attacking John Jones right at the back of the field as we can just take a breath, or maybe we might have time for two breaths at the front of the field. We might as well focus on a little bit of action at the back, but no, there we go. We should jump straight to the midfield as Felvers goes past Sutton. Hayden goes past Andy Dorman and slides in between that sort of baby blue and white Audi TT sandwich. And I think Hayden, he was trying to get the inside of Thorpe. It wasn't quite happening. They're going to go 3 wide into Paddock Hill across the start-finish line. Hayden's in the middle. Sutton's on the outside, and Thorpe Sutton ends up falling off the circuit. Hayden goes through on Dorman, Flanagan, and all overtakes Simon Thorpe. And Paul Zanatechi it ended up going into the side of Simon Thorpe, who's coming off really rather worse for wear. Rich Hayden into 8th place. Dorman and Flanagan are the drivers behind him now.
Yeah, there's some serious noises coming out of my mouth today, isn't there? But I tell you what, Paul is just one of the most unlucky drivers I've seen here in the race today. He's got his way back up to 11th, but it just seems he's always caught unlucky. He's carrying the speed through that apex, and just when he's trying to get the drive out, there's a driver trying to rejoin the track right in the danger point, and that's happened multiple times now for Paul. I feel really unlucky for him. But let's face it, Brands Indy is always a bit of one of these tracks. Whoa, as we saw there, Mick Sutton very sideways through turn 1 there, and Rich Hayden is going to have a look up the inside. But Mick Sutton there with just a lunge. This is getting a bit naughty for me. A few drivers here really just trying to put the lunge on to get past instead of using their heads to try and calculate when that pass could be possible. Let's hope it cleans up a little bit when these drivers spread out a bit more. But that was what I was going to say. Brands Indy, a notoriously tight track. And I think you'll agree here, Jack, that when you go watch British touring cars here in real life, it is guaranteed almost every time, to be fair, a safety car every single race.
Yeah, I mean, it's I thought it was getting a bit dicey and a bit naughty about 5-10 minutes ago, to be honest. But,
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just the nature of the track, and people are so desperate to get through. It's not easy. However, that was that's a very nice little battle that's going on between Rich Hayden and Andy Dorman. It has to be said, great respect there. Unfortunately, Nathan Blank has fallen down into 9th position as we focus back towards Rich Hayden and Andy Dorman, and I've just seen Hayden Phillips in the chat as well. Rich hasn't been able to get through the field quite as well as the other podium sitters from race 1. Absolutely right. The other podium sitters absolutely flown away. Nikki Taylor and Luke Weston all fighting for the race lead, which is brilliant as well. So, you know, it's quite impressive from those guys. But Andy Dorman here, Taylor O'Flanagan, Nathan Blank, Rich Hayden, all in this battle to try and come into 6th place. This is the battle for the race lead. And once again, heating up. Nikki Taylor trying to chase down Simon Reed. They've always been in the thick of the action. Pretty much everything we've been following is involved these drivers. Brad Smith is trying to get onto the back. Remember, he qualified very well I think it was second place that Brad Smith qualified. He's in third at the moment. And then Luke Weston, who was leading this race, remember, and came third in race 1, just dropped off the back of these cars at the moment. But you can guarantee that they'll be fighting, and you can pretty much guarantee they'll hold each other up, and Luke Weston will be invited back into this mix sooner rather than later. Andy Dorman still behind Rich Hayden as they go through Clark Curve. Rich trying to go for that tighter line, maybe a slightly quicker entry, whereas Andy trying to go for that wider line, slow in, fast out approach that most racing drivers would probably recommend.
Yeah, definitely, and I tell you what, I think unfortunately this race might be decided a little bit more through after protests. I feel there was a few drivers that have been a little bit naughty. They'll probably know they've been a little bit naughty as well. But for me, the driver I haven't seen being naughty and has done it all cleanly and got his way up through the grid, Nicky Taylor sat in second place. What a drive he's put on here.
Yeah, we haven't really seen too many dodgy incidents from him. There have been plenty of dodgy incidents that maybe it's all blending into one, but this certainly is going to be an interesting one for the stewards, isn't it? But Dorman here trying to chase down Rich Hayden. It's not, I mean, he is got a little bit of better pace about him, hasn't he?
Oh, this must have been a mistake.
But this is a battle on Brad Smith for Nicky Taylor. Taylor on the inside trying to hold off the attack of Brad Smith. Doing it just for now, but Smith looking up the inside, and Druids outbrakes himself, and he's going to have to try and get that late apex. He does manage to get the late apex. At least he didn't ruin the entire corner, and he's still on the back. Oh, no, he's not, because he's dipped a wheel off on the background in the outside going into Graham Hill. And I tell you what, Dave, that is one of the reasons why Brands Hatch is so difficult, isn't it? Because we're about to see it again from Nathan Blank. Every single braking zone, every single entry and exit to a corner is unconventional. You're pretty much always under load, left or right, especially the Indy circuit.
Yeah, definitely that for me. I think this is probably a case there. Brad just needs to calm himself down a little bit. He seems a little bit too aggressive, and he's actually losing a lot of time because of that. You saw in the run-up to Druids, that move was never on against Nicky Taylor, and yet he braked almost in the place you would brake if it was a lunge, but didn't get his nose up the inside. It's times like that when if Nicky had just braked a little bit sooner there, he'd have been at the back of Nicky, he would have spun him out. You know, Brad's losing time here just because he's driving it a little bit too aggressive. He just needs to follow Nicky, maybe use a bit of that push to pass. You saw he managed to gain onto the back of him, so that gives you the headspace of going, oh, Mick Sutton needs to just be careful doing them track rejoins. Very aggressive left there. Just needs to be smoother coming onto that track, making sure he's not going to collide with any of them cars. Few drivers here on this grid for me that I think either might need a bit of a talk to after the race, or also just losing the head a little bit with the aggression and maybe with the driving standards of a few other drivers.
20 minutes is quite a long time to race, and especially if you've just done another 20-minute race. I mean, a lot of people out there may be watching this thinking, oh, 20 minutes isn't that long. You know, you see people doing 6, 7, 8 hour, 24-hour races, don't you? But realistically, if you're starting out in sim racing, it is mentally very tough, isn't it? I mean, if anything, like, in my opinion, I've spoken about it quite a lot. I've raced in real life in Ginettas around the likes of Brands Hatch and everything else. In my opinion, mentally, it's actually harder sim racing because when you're real life racing, there's a little bit of a squiggle there from Simon Thorburn, Nathan Blank, Marmik Satar, who hasn't moved through the order as quickly as maybe we thought he would, due to a lot of damage, I think, is trying to get involved in this at the moment, but he's suffering a little bit with a bit of aero, a bit of damage, isn't he, Dave, at the moment? Shooting back towards this battle between Andy Dorman and Rich Hayden, and Dorman loses it on the outside again, dipping that wheel on the outside of the circuit, unfortunately, ends that battle before it even gets started. But like I was saying, I think actually it's mentally more challenging to get switched on, and for, you know, the amount of time you need to be switched on for in sim racing, because in real life racing, you got the imminent threat of death at every single corner, haven't you? It keeps you switched on. Sim racing, you're just driving on a simulator, and I don't feel like your entire body quite gets into the moment as much as it does in real life. So I find it harder to concentrate for the amount of time that you need to. Yeah,
and there's a lot more strain on the driver as well, so there's a lot more strain on your eyes, and also it's quite a lot harder because it's not as natural to race on a sim as it is in real life for the likes of the depth perception. So if you see a car coming up ahead or a corner up ahead, it happens a lot more natural on the speed difference between them two things. On a sim, it requires the concentration to go right. That was my breaking point before. Was it late enough? Was it not? Some drivers don't really have to think about that much, but a lot of these drivers brand new to sim racing, there's a lot to learn here. So I know I've been harping on about driving standards, but that's just hopefully a little bit so that some of them will watch it back and understand what I'm talking about. On the whole though, a lot of drivers here doing a very, very good job indeed. I'm pleased to see Paul getting his way up to 9th place. So Paul up inside that top 10, getting some valuable points for the championship, and actually for all the horrid luck he's had in these two races. Hopefully it won't deter him too much from the other races this season. I honestly think when we get to the bigger tracks, we've seen Paul is a quick driver. He'll get himself further up the grid there in qualifying, and the grid will be more spread out, and he'll really manage to get the points he really does deserve.
Yeah, we're just shooting back towards the front of the field at the moment. Nikki Taylor is attempting a move on Simon Reed. We're into the final 2 laps of racing. This will be the penultimate lap. It's basically a 50-second lap round here. There's just over a minute to go. The maths isn't too tricky as Sam Milner goes off the outside of the circuit. He's in 16th place, so I mean realistically he's just trying to get out of the way, which is all very considerate. Nikki Taylor, I mean, he ran a little bit wide, but I'd say Simon Reed actually ran wider. It didn't really hurt each other too much. Going through Surtees and into Clark Curve now, it's about how well you get off this exit now and who's got the push to passes left. I don't think Nikki Taylor has any push to passes. I think Simon Reed has one.
Yeah, so actually this is developing into a right battle here going into the last lap. Even if Nikki Taylor gets his nose up the inside last corner, which for me it's through Surtees, he has been looking very, very quick indeed. Simon Reed will have that push to pass all the way at the line, so this could be a real one to watch for the line.
Yeah, plenty of drivers not actually have any left, so they've all been using the push to pass. There's a little bit of contact in the background between Brad Smith and Luke Weston. Luke Weston trying to get back up the inside. We're on the final lap of the race, of course, so this is where it all counts, essentially. You want to be trying to lead your battle going through Clark Curve, and as they go through Surtees, Weston trying to put his car in every which way to try and force an opportunity out of Brad Smith. Simon Reed's about to cross the line, but we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. I think it's going to be as it was. Simon Reed takes the checkered flag here in race number 2 of the Audi TT Cup. Nikki Taylor in second, and across the line comes Brad Smith to take the bottom step off the podium. Luke Weston comes home in 4th, which isn't a bad haul of points for the evening, it has to be said, Dave, is it? With 5th place being Carl Felvers.
Yeah, but I think, if I'm honest, Luke Weston will be really miffed about that. I think he was maybe pushed on in the last corner. It's wide drop back to 4th. He had the speed in the car. He was setting the same lap time as the other 3. So I imagine Luke's probably not going to be particularly happy about that. But that's what we've got a protest system for. If you're not happy, you put the protest in and let the clerks of the course sort it out. Or you message the driver, get involved with each other, try and sort it out, driver to driver, and just have a bit of respect between them. Accept that there can be fault there at hand, and if it is, hold your hands up, say, I'm sorry, and I'll take whatever penalty I'm given.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we say talk to the other driver, we mean nicely, approach them professionally, not just start effing and blinding. Driver of the day, Dave, we haven't mentioned it pretty much at all. It's one of the things that we mentioned all the time in the League of Champions, but we haven't mentioned it at all. But I think we've both gone for the same driver. Nikki Taylor for me, second place. And another second place in race number 2 as well. Kept it clean from what we saw. Good racing, good pace, and pretty much everything you'd be hoping for in the Academy grid.
Yeah, it really was, and for me it was also how cleanly he did it as well. All the way through the grid, hardly any contact, just rested purely on his racecraft to get him through. So we'll address that when we come to give him the interview. But first of all, we'll go down to our P3 finisher, Brad Smith. A P3 finish on the podium after a very, very difficult race 1, but not a lot of paint left either on your car after race 2 either.
No, I think some people need to learn how to drive.
Well, that is what they're here in the academy to do there, Brad. Obviously, there is judicials as well, and if there's any protest to be taken, they will be dealt with after the race. But you must be fairly happy to at least get it back to P3, keep your championship hopes alive, and think about the championship point haul as well.
Oh yeah, I felt like I had the pace to keep up with the Nikki and Simon.
Yeah.
And just made a couple of little mistakes, and they got away, and that was it. These cars are really, really hard to pass in. So
yeah, so I was going to ask about that quickly because we didn't chat you in race 1, but in race 2, obviously we're chatting you now, and regarding the push to pass, how difficult is it actually trying to sort of think of when to use the push to passes and incorporating that, and also try to learn how to drive the car on the track and elements like that?
Yeah, it is really difficult because obviously when we're practicing, you're not in a race scenario where you're racing really. So
yeah,
it's a case of judging. What I done, I tried to save mine up towards the end of the race and then use them to try and get past, but
yeah,
it didn't work out because I made a mistake. But yeah, so.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Did you actually stick to your strategy of the push to passes, or did you find yourself retaliating maybe to sometimes if a driver had used his in a place that you weren't necessarily thinking about?
No, I let them go and then caught up with them the rest of the lap, and then judged it on if they were going to use it or not.
Well, that's interesting to hear there, Brad. Huge congratulations, taking a P3 finish there in race 2 and looking forward to how you get on next time out on a slightly bigger track.
Thank you very much.
I'll move forward on our P2 driver and also voted our driver of the day, Nikki Taylor. That is where the racecraft really just comes in, doesn't it? I think you were the cleanest driver out there from what we saw, as well as a case of just having a bit of that raw pace, but just not quite enough to get Simon Reed there at the end. Do we have you there, Nikki Taylor? I can see you unmuting and muting your mic. I'll come back to you if you can get your mic sorted. We'll jump to our P1 finisher while Nikki tries to fix his microphone. Simon Reed, P1, a very, very difficult race. And I tell you what, from a full reverse grid, when we've got 17 cars out there on track, that was no easy feat, was it?
No, absolutely not. It's as Brad was saying, it is tricky to overtake in these cars, and yeah, there's a lot more people now. The racing is a lot closer. It's definitely very different driving this compared to previous cars we've driven.
And I've got to quickly ask, do you think it's difficult to do the overtakes because of the track? So do you think when we go to a bigger track, it might actually make things a little bit easier?
Yeah, possibly, I suppose. I mean, we'll find out when we go to one of the longer circuits. It is a short track with not a lot of overtaking opportunities. So, yeah, and perhaps with a longer track, you'll have more opportunities to deploy the push to pass as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and also when you go to the bigger tracks, do you think it'll actually be even harder still to gauge when to use them push to passes?
Oh yeah, definitely. Around Brands, there's only probably 2 places you can really use it. If you go over to Snetterton or Donington, there's probably going to be 3, 4, 5. You know, you'll really have to think about the strategy then.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to seeing how you get on there. Congratulations on taking a P1 here, Simon, and I believe looking very, very good in the championship points as well. Looking forward to seeing how you get on next time out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Dave. Thank you very much.
Spot on, and we'll move forward onto our race director, and actually, fair play, Rich, a very, very quick driver as well.
I'll unmute my mic. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that was really difficult. Short track, cars that are very even, well, are exactly evenly matched, and yeah, it was tricky that. But I think our next coaching session is on racecraft and how to overtake.
Well, I think there might be definitely a few judicials after today's race, but it is all part of racing, though, isn't it, Rich? This happens in championships, yeah. And this is what the academy is all about.
Absolutely, yeah.
Trying to keep that mental head as well when things are not necessarily going in your way is as important to try and stay as consistent and keep your head to pull yourself back through the grid instead of losing it and maybe taking your anger out on certain other drivers.
Absolutely, yeah. It's important that we use this to make sure that everybody understands the racecraft, where to position your car, what to go for, what not to go for, and how to set people up for following corners, following laps. So yeah, it's important that we learn from this. Yeah.
I will say though, race 2 was obviously a little bit messy with it being a full reverse grid, but race 1 driving standard wise, like there's drivers in the championships that would be looking at that thinking these are drivers that's been doing it for years and years.
No, it was. Do you know what? It was overall. It was good. I think we just had a little bit of an issue in race 2, like you said, with the full reverse. But other than that, I think everybody should have enjoyed it. I know there's a couple of people that weren't happy with a couple of the contacts that they had, but at the end of the day, we're here to have some fun and we're here to learn, and that's the most important thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's all good. Looking forward to the next round.
It is indeed. Thanks a lot, Rich. And we're just going to have a quick catch up now on the way the championship standings are sat.
Yeah, so Simon Reed tops the pile at the moment with 39 points. Nikki Taylor with 34 in second place. And Luke Weston in third with 32. So nice and close between the top three. There is a bit of a gap, to be honest, between Luke Weston and Andy Dorman, who sits in fourth. And Brad Smith in fifth place. So fourth and fifth at the moment, 23 and 22 points. And it all gets very close. You can see on your screen all the way down into 13th position there. Rich Hayden taking that first place in race number 1, but suffering in race number 2 means he's sat down in 7th at the moment. And there you go, all the way down to John Jones, who scored 1 point. I don't believe he finished in the second race, which is a bit unfortunate. But hopefully, as you and Rich have just discussed there, Dave, hopefully, as we go through the coaching sessions, as we go through the 6 weeks and maybe get onto some conventional, slightly easier tracks, the whole sort of kit and caboodle of racing will become a little bit cleaner and we'll see points scored more consistently.
Yeah, I do always think Brand Indy always lends itself to a little bit of where tempers get a little bit frayed. It is such a tight track and it's that difficult to overtake. Sometimes it feels like overtakes have to be forced in order to try and get through the pack. But as Nikki Taylor, our driver of the day, showed, you can do it cleanly. You just have to bide your time and wait for them gaps to appear.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to go and sign off for the evening. Dave, it's been a terrific night of racing in the Audi TT Cup Academy. Thank you, everybody, for watching and enjoying, hopefully, the stream, commenting, liking, and doing whatever you were doing, wherever you were watching it from. It's been a pleasure. We'll be back next week at the same time for more Audi TT Cup action at Silverstone International as well, which is lining up to be an absolutely awesome day's racing, especially with the push to pass being available at about 16 different points on each lap. To be honest, it's going to be really interesting to see how they crack on with that. There is a week break for the League of Champions as it's just finished. However, there is on 2 weeks on Tuesday another opportunity to see the League of Champions because it's the finale. So if you don't want to miss that, it's just basically what you've seen today, but hyped up to 11. It's absolutely incredible. The finale for the League of Champions 2 weeks on Tuesday. So wherever you're watching this from, you want to subscribe or follow to make sure you don't miss any of the action. My name's been Jack Oliphant. Dave Marshall's been alongside me in the virtual commentary box. Tom O'Farrell has been broadcasting for the evening as well. Did a brilliant job with it. We'll see you all later. Good night.
Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.